a sporting event. So what you're going to do is you're going to start with the band in your right hand, standing on your left leg. You want to have enough resistance to where when you squat down and your arms extended, so do a single leg squat, arm extended, that you have a little bit of resistance on the band. She's going to stand up and row back at the same time. So squatting down, rowing, pulling the shoulder blade back while she's doing that, so you get a little bit of upper back musculature as well. Making sure same premise applies, keep that knee behind your foot, kneecap stays in line with the second toe of your shoe as you're doing a single leg squat. You'd also like to make sure that this back stays as straight as possible, keeping your tummy muscles tight so everything stays supported. Once again, you'd want to do this on both sides. When you go to the other side, only difference is that you will have standing on your right leg, band in the left hand, doing the exact same thing. Okay? Perfect. Our next exercise that we're going to do is a single leg squat that includes rotation. For this, you can use your stairs again at home or any kind of step that you have. And 2 cones. If you don't have 2 cones, use cups out of your pantry or something like that. All that they're there for is your target. You want those a little bit wider than your body width when you're standing in the middle of them. So what we're going to ask Brittany to do is standing on one leg. Then she's going to squat down and reach towards the opposite cone with her hands and then stand back up. So squatting down, reaching, and back up. What she wants to do is to make sure she crosses midline, which is a challenge to her balance. And then the single leg squat is a challenge in and of itself to the lower extremity musculature. So this is once again one of those integrated movements that combines balance, strengthening, everything together, which is more like normal daily activities and sporting activities. So squatting down, reaching to the opposite, coming up. Squatting down, reaching to the opposite, and coming up. Keeping that kneecap right in line with the second toe of the shoe, not letting the knees translate in front of the toes. Same thing, you would want to do it on both sides. You can obviously tell one leg's a little bit better than the other. Most people, that's normal with almost everyone. You're going to notice that you have a dominant side and a non-dominant side, which is very normal. That just means that we have to work on both sides equally, and potentially even that non-dominant side a little bit more. The next exercise we're going to do is an eccentric gastroc exercise. Eccentric just means it's the kind of contraction that the muscle's having to do. Your gastroc muscles are the muscles in your lower leg or your calf muscles. So you're going to start with something to hold on to. We'll use the wall for now. Toes up on a step. You want to come up on both toes, high as you can, lift up one leg, and then lower super slow on just the side that's still on the ground. You want to go as slow as you can on the way down. That's what makes the exercise challenging, is making yourself control your body weight slowly all the way down. Once you complete one, come up on 2, pick up one leg, and lower slowly. That eccentric portion is just the muscle having to lengthen and contract at the same time versus the muscle having to shorten and contract at the same time. So coming up on 2, lifting one leg, and down slow. You want to make sure when you lift a foot up that the foot that's remaining to do the lowering does not drop any at all. So when you come up on both toes, this heel should stay up, shouldn't drop a bit when you come down. And then coming down slow. Same thing, 10 to 15 repetitions, 2 to 3 sets on each side, depending on what your starting out level is when you're starting the exercise. Next exercise we're going to do is a ball bridge. These last exercises are all done on the floor. You're going to need your gym ball again. You're going to put both of your feet up on top of the ball. You want your knees directly above your hips. This ball bridge works on your core musculature, which is everything from your rib cage through your hips, as well as your gluteals and in your hamstrings. What you want to do is tighten your tummy muscles up. You can go ahead and put both hands flat on the ground. That'll help give you just a little bit of a support. Tighten your tummy muscles, lift your hips up off of the floor or the table. You want to hold at this position for a good 5 to 10 seconds. After the 5 to 10 seconds, you want to lower slowly, one vertebra at a time. So you're trying to touch one vertebra down at a time to the mat all the way down. And then let it relax. Keeping that knees right there, tighten your tummy muscles up again, lift up, hold 5 good seconds, and then once again lower slowly, one vertebra at a time, all the way down. Once you master just the ball bridge, then we're going to do a ball bridge with a hamstring curl. So what you're doing at this point is keeping those knees directly above the hips to start with, tighten your tummy muscles, lift up. From this position, push your knees out straight, pull your knees back into the start position, and then lower slowly one vertebra at a time, just like we did before. So once again, tighten your tummy muscles, lift your hips up, push your knees out straight, pull them back in, and then lower slowly. As you can see with the hamstring curl added, you get that dynamic movement, which we were talking about in integrating dynamic movements into the exercise, as well as a little bit more work on your hamstrings than you did with just the bridge. The next exercise we're going to do is a lateral bridge. So I'm going to take the ball and Brittany's going to roll over onto her side. Once on your side, you want your knees bent up on your elbow and your forearm on your upper extremity. You want your hips, shoulders, and knees in a relatively straight line. Bring your hips forward just a little bit. There we go. Tighten your tummy muscles at this point. You're going to lift your hips up off of the table or the mat. You can use the front hand for a balance, but I don't want you using it to push off of. You want to hold at this point for 5 good seconds and then lower back down slowly. Once again, tighten up your stomach muscles, lift your hips up off the table or the floor. Go ahead and keep that shoulder back. So your shoulder, hip, and knee are in a relatively straight line, and then lower slowly. This lateral bridge works a couple of great things. First off, it works a lot of your oblique muscles and those lower back, smaller muscles that are deep within your low back. As well, it works the upper portion of your outside of your hip, which is super important because we talked about how much hip weakness is found in many female athletes that end up with lower extremity problems, especially ACL tears. So once again, tightening the stomach muscles, lifting up, holding for a good 5 seconds at the top, and then lowering slowly. In this same position, the next exercise you're going to do is a clam. You want that resisted band that you made earlier for that lateral band walk. We're going to use it again. You're going to put it around both feet, all the way up around both knees. Laying on your side again, feet stay together. Your knees are going to open up like a clamshell. You only open your knees up as far as you can, keeping that hip directly on top of the other one. How you cheat for this exercise, or how your body naturally compensates, is to let that hip roll back. We want to keep those hips directly on top of each other as you open your knee up. This works again on that lateral outside of the hip, which we've talked about as being super important with building a firm and strong foundation in our hip area to then have a good stable base in which to move off of with our lower extremities. Now, if you find that you want to roll back a lot and you have a hard time controlling it, put yourself up against a wall. If you back your shoulders and your hips up against a wall, then the wall is going to keep you from rolling back, and so you no longer can compensate as well. So you take out your cheating mechanism. It's a little quality control for you. You want to hold at the top for a good couple of seconds, and then lower slowly. You should be feeling this right behind the seam of your shorts or your pants, right up in this top part of your hip. The next exercise we're going to do is a lower extremity lowering. So we're going to get out of this band. Brittany's now going to be laying down on her back. For this exercise, this works your lower abdominal muscles, those muscles that lie below where your waistband typically is. Because this is also a hard exercise technique-wise, I'm going to have Brittany put both of her hands palm down flat underneath her low back. This will help to give her some cues of when she needs to stop the motion based on her own activity and muscle level of these muscles. So you're going to keep that knee directly above the hips, straighten those knees out as much as you can. This is obviously dependent on how much you can because of hamstring length. Tummy stays tight. You're going to let those legs come out slowly. And you come out until you feel your low back lose it. And by lose it, I mean the pressure in her low back. She loses pressure on her hands from her low back. At that point is when she wants to pull back in. So she comes out until she feels that pressure change, and then she pulls back in until she's past where she started from, raising her hips up off of the floor. So coming out till you start to lose it, then pulling back in until the hips come off of the floor. This is working on those lower deep abdominal muscles, so we want to make sure that stomach stays tight the entire time. If you are feeling this in your low back, then you're not doing it correctly. So go back, shorten the range that you're doing it in, do it at a shorter range, really focus on the exercise, slow and controlled movements both directions. Go ahead and let it relax. This concludes the strengthening of the lower extremity and core musculature for our ACL injury prevention video. We're going to go to next is some jumping mechanics. We're going to show you good mechanics and bad mechanics, so that way you know what to look for in yourself or in your athlete. Now we're going to talk about jumping mechanics. Jumping is one of the primary places that people will injure their ACL without any kind of contact. Typically this is because females in particular don't know how to jump and to land correctly. So what we're going to talk about is the proper and the improper technique for jumping and landing. In a proper jumping and landing technique, the prep position, which is the position you start in, and your landing position both are extremely important, because those are both of the times when your feet are in contact with the ground and you have forces coming up from the ground through your body. So in a proper technique, just like with that squat that we did at the very beginning of the video, your kneecaps always want to stay in line with the second toe of your shoe. You don't want your body to transfer in front of your toes, and you always want to absorb your body weight by bending your knees versus having your knees straight when you land. Most people's improper technique does one or two things, both things which I'm going to demonstrate. Most people either do, in a prep position and a landing position, their knees cave in, so their hip musculature is not controlling where their legs are going. So they take off, their prep is here, they take off, and when they land, same thing. They either land with their knees here and then cave in, or they land with them all the way inside to begin with. Now you can see if I'm landing here, how far my kneecaps are inside of the second toe of my shoe. So once again, if people are jumping, they're going to be prep and land, and they go to that same position. This is putting a tremendous amount of force through your knee joint in an improper position or incorrect position. The other primary way that people jump incorrectly is when they land, to land with their knees locked out or their knees straight. We want to make sure we're bending our knees to absorb our body weight. So many times those athletes will still jump taking off the same exact way. So when they prep, their knees go together or cave inside together, and when they land locked knee to start with, and then try to absorb their body weight. Well, after they've already landed with their knees locked, the damage is already done at that point. So we can't go back and correct what's already been done. We want them to land and absorb their body weight at the same time. Now we're going to have Brittany come over and we're going to show you the correct technique for jumping and for landing. Now we're going to have Brittany show us the correct technique for jumping and landing off of two legs. So what she's going to do is she's going to start in the prep position. Just like in the squat, feet in a good stable base, shoulder width apart. She's going to go ahead and jump off and land. And when she lands, you'll notice that her feet stay right in line with her kneecaps. So second toe of the shoe and the kneecaps stay in line. Knees don't go in front of the toes. And she also has that same position when she takes off. So we're going to do it again. Like I said before, the prep position and the landing position are both important. So prepping, both knees are there. When she bends just a bit to prep, and then jump, same thing, lands in that same position. Let's try it one more time. I'm going to have her start standing up almost a little bit more straight. And then if I was not coaching her how to do this, just have her drop into a squat. So let's go ahead and start standing up straight, and then just jump as if you weren't thinking about it. Same thing. Knees stay right in line with the second toe of the shoes. Knees don't translate in front of the toes. So go ahead and stand up. You'll notice that she didn't have any of that caving in of both of her knees, which is not what we want to see. Now we're going to try to do the one leg jump. She's going to jump off of one and land on one. This is a lot more difficult simply because you're having to control balance and muscle movement at the same time on only one lower extremity. She's going to take off of one and land on one. And you'll notice there, she has a little bit more of an S-curvy motion when she lands. Go ahead and put both legs together. That is because she's trying to figure out where her balance is. So the more times you take off and land of one leg, the easier that becomes, which is super important in sports like basketball and those kind of things when you're doing more of a one-legged takeoff and a one-legged landing. Let's try again. So taking off of one leg, knee starts right in line with the second toe of the shoe. She jumps off, and when she lands, same position, knee right in line with the second toe of the shoe. Let's do one more, just for good measure. Knee right in line with the second toe of the shoe. She jumps off. Same thing. Starts with that knee right in line with the second toe of the shoe. All right. This concludes our ACL injury prevention program. Our prevention program is designed to be implemented 3 to 4 days per week for 6 to 8 weeks prior to the start of your competitive season. Each of these sessions should last 45 minutes to an hour. Just a few reminders, quality is more important than the quantity. Perfect practice makes perfect. Every single repetition counts. In sports, there's no guarantee for an injury-free season. However, you can lower your risk of injury by improving and maintaining your lower extremity strength and using proper mechanics. Thank you for your interest in helping us prevent ACL injuries in yourself, your student athlete, and in your team.